Hello and welcome to Valley Viewpoint. There are lots of things that your kids could be doing and reading, but we have some good ideas for you. Crissy, welcome to the program. Now, you are the manager of a Christian bookstore in College Place. So tell us, why do we have Christian bookstores? Aren't just any bookstores good enough?
Hi, Dan. Thank you for having me. And that's a really good question. I'm glad that you asked it. As a parent of two girls, I remember going into the local library and going to the bookstores and just really trying to look through these materials and find out, is this something I really want my kids to read? And I remember scouring different book sites that are available that will kind of give you a Reader's Digest version of what is in that book, and they'll tell you common themes. But even with all of that and all of that due diligence, I found that I still had books that were in front of my kids that later I wished hadn't been. And you can't take that back, really, without a huge conversation. So I'd rather put something in front of my kids and anyone's children that I feel comfortable with, not only as a parent, but as someone that's interested in the welfare of not only my kids, but all of our kids.
Now, there's a lot of reading material out there, and a lot that I see being produced that's popular is based on demons and warlocks and fantasy and a lot of things that probably aren't consistent with a Christian worldview. What kind of material are Christian bookstores providing to counter that trend?
There are a lot of books available, like you said, that have a spiritual type nature to them. And that is really hard to compete with because, I don't know, it's almost like as kids start to read that, they kind of get wrapped up in the mystery of that. And just a wholesome book doesn't have that same appeal. It's almost as if in that book, there's some spiritual activity going on with your kid in that moment. And so from a Christian perspective and standpoint, we don't have that same appeal, but what we have is an eternal value. So we're going to have real life characters or books played about real life characters and what they might have gone through. We're also going to have stories about animals. We're going to have stories about angels, miracle stories, miraculous hero stories, like just where God puts things together in such a way that it's completely explainable and for no other reason than God provided and was there for you. So it's a very different appeal, but it's more exciting, I think, if you can really help kids dial in, like, this actually happened, and there's only one person to explain it, and that's God. God did it, and he was here working in and through this event.
You know, I know when I was a kid, I was privileged to attend a Christian school, so we had a library that was somewhat pre-selected for us, and I just loved the stories that I read about people like David Livingstone, a missionary to Africa, missionaries to China, and there was real adventure. I mean, these people were almost killed, they were being chased, they were out in the woods, the wild, and there were dangers with wild animals, and I was just fascinated by all of this. But behind the scenes, there was always this message that God was looking over these people and guiding them, and they would pray, and it was not fantasy, but it was definitely adventure. I mean, there was a lot of adventure that drew me into these kinds of books. Do Christian bookstores still have this kind of material for our kids in this generation?
We do have a lot of classic literature. You're going to see David Livingstone. We have some Norma Youngberg books. We have just other books. And as I come across more children's literature, I'm working on selling down the inventory we have, and as I start to reorder, I'm trying to be really intentional on what we bring back in. And I'm creating a system of values and parameters. Does it meet this criteria and this criteria? Including looking at, for those early readers, I'd like to bring in some just wholesome books that kids can learn to read with. That way, from the very beginning of their reading career, they're getting interested in whetting their appetite for wholesome material.
Now, as a Christian bookstore, you're more than books, though, aren't you? I mean, I think there are like Christian movies and Christian music and a lot of other things that bless the Christian community. Tell us just the scope of what you have at a Christian bookstore.
Yeah, we are more than Christian books. We have, like you mentioned, DVDs. A bunch of them I've actually watched because I try really hard to filter what I put into my own mind. So I'm not going to probably watch something in the theaters unless it's like, I can only imagine the story about, I believe, was it Mercy Me? There was some musical group and it was their story. So I know that I saw that one. But we have movies that are going to be wholesome and uplifting that have a prominent theme maybe of struggle or some person's life story and how that relates back to God. Some of them are true life, some of them are going to be fiction, but they're all going to have that theme of how does God interweave himself in our human story. And then we also have a bunch of music, and we do have DVD or CD-ROMs. I know that's kind of becoming obsolete as we move into a more digital world, and
Right.
so I would appreciate feedback from people. Would you still like to have a CD selection? If so, who are the favorite groups you'd like to hear from? I know Heritage Singers and Here in the Valley Handpicked are two of my more popular artists. But I really want to have a Christian store that appeals to the general audience, like what they would like to see. So if they want musical CD selections, which ones? And we also have greeting cards. We're one of the only places you can go locally, or maybe the only place you can go locally to purchase a Christian greeting card, whether you have a baptism, pastor appreciation, or birthday card, and you want to have that Christian element in it, then this card will provide that. And we do have other gifts as well.
And I will confess, I've been in your store, and it's a great place for anniversary cards as well. So tell me, from a personal perspective, how did you get interested in this? Why is this your passion?
You know, that actually backs us up several years. So I had been praying earnestly for a period of 6 to 8 months and asking God what he wanted me to do with my life. I had a bachelor's degree in communications and journalism, public relations and communications from Walla Walla University. However, I had children very early on in my marriage and never got to fully utilize that degree. So here I am coming back to the workforce going, those skills are really rusty, and I don't know without some continuing education classes if I could really land a job in that. So I just really wanted guidance and direction from God. So as I'm praying for several months, God actually calls me to ministry. It was very clear he called me to speak and to write, and I felt that he confirmed that. But then as I was seeking guidance from local ministry in the area where I was at in the South, I was told, well, women don't go into ministry. And I was so disappointed. And so I went back to the drawing board and I continued praying for another few years and finally had what I felt was like this backup plan, but it felt pretty crummy to me. I knew it didn't quite fit like what I felt God had called me to. And so as I kept praying, even though I had that backup plan in my back pocket, it required a master's degree, so I had to wait on a year-long waiting list. I kept praying, and during that time, God actually called me to ministry again about a year later, and then I argued with God for a full week. And when you argue with God, clearly he's going to win because he's divine, and he finally sent someone to me to talk with me to confirm me in ministry. And so he closed all the doors very rapidly and opened up doors for me to attend Andrews University and attend their Master of Divinity program at the seminary. So even as I'm doing this program at the seminary, I'm praying, God, what do you want me to do? And it was about earlier this year, I knew some things were going to be changing. I didn't know what and I didn't know how, but God just gave me that thought, like, things are going to be changing, it's going to be okay, and just hold on, I've got you. So I was looking at a local church bulletin, looking at different events that they had, and in their little bulletin or email newsletter, they had a job posting for the ABC. And I felt God tell me to apply for it. I hadn't really been looking for that. I was looking for events. And then I started arguing with God in prayer in my mind. And I said, God, is this really what you want me to do? And it was just a very strong impression to apply. So I applied. And it was 6 weeks of interviewing back and forth. I think there were 2 or 3 interviews before they finally came back with an offer. And I did worry a little, but I also knew, I just knew, God, this is where God wanted me. And I didn't know how things would work out with the Master of Divinity degree or other things that were going on. And I just took a leap of faith and a plunge, okay, God, this is where you want me. And if they offer me the position, I'll take it. And so, yeah, it turns out that this was a point that was pretty critical, both in my personal life, though I didn't know it at the time, and also for the store, because when my predecessor retired, the question came up, well, what's the future of this store looking like? There was a discussion about what that should look like, and they were very prayerful.
We want to learn more about your vision for the Christian bookstore that you are managing, and we're going to come back after a short break. So don't go away. We want you to hear more about the opportunities that you have and how Christian bookstores can help you to grow in your spiritual life. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Valley Viewpoint. If you're just joining us, my guest today is Crissy Meharry, and she is the new manager of a Christian bookstore in College Place, Washington, the ABC Christian Bookstore. So, Crissy, I want to get back to your vision about where you see the Christian bookstore finding a niche in the community and helping the Christians, helping the churches. How do you see the Christian bookstore fitting into the community?
I love the idea of a Christian bookstore, but not just a place where you go to get books, but a place that you can go to meet an author of the book that you're reading. Maybe go and have book studies, like maybe you've got a group of women and you found the right book that you want to read, and you're going to come in and talk through that book together and have a space there for that. Or maybe you're there for Bible studies. I'd love to see a group area set up in the front of the store and have it be available for prayer, for Bible study, for book study, for author signings, even for small group like health events. We've discussed a number of different ideas, but I wanted to be a community
Do you actually
place.
have cookbooks in the store?
We do.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So just seeing where God takes it, every direction that we could go, I pray over and I ask God for wisdom and guidance, because ultimately I'm just his hands and feet, and this is his store. It's his ministry. So he brings people to the store. I don't always know why, but I find out some pieces a little bit later on, or maybe I never find out at all. But when they come in, ultimately the goal is that they feel loved and welcomed in a Christian way to a Christian place and have a positive experience.
Now, how does the bookstore, a Christian bookstore in particular, assist churches in the area that want materials to help grow God's kingdom in their churches?
We can offer a lot of different services and support, and it just depends on what the church is looking for. Some churches, we have the ability to supplement them with Sabbath school materials. So if they run low, we have extras in store over at our place. We do sometimes have communion supplies. We'll have some tithe envelopes. We have some baptismal certificates, or if you're going from kindergarten class to an upper primary class, just different resources like that, as well as resources on what deacons and elders do and deaconesses, church manuals. So we do have a variety of resources, but I think if a specific church wanted some materials, they could connect with me, let me know what they're looking for and the frequency that they wanted those materials, and then I could find a program that met both of their needs and mine, and can start supplying that for them and for others.
Now, I know as a believer myself that having Bible study materials for adults has been a real blessing. And we talked about all the things that you're doing for the kids, or at least some of the things that you're doing for the kids and the materials that you have for the kids. But do you have stuff for adults?
Yes, we have several different Bible study guides that people can use to work with someone, that they can come in and they can flip through and find out if this Bible study matches the person that they're going to be studying with. So that's really nice.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can help the churches and that people who are adults, not just the kids. So it's like a whole family ministry, is that right?
It definitely strives to be that. Yeah, we have things for relationships, both before you get married and during the marriage, what to do should your marriage be falling apart. We have things for parenting. I know one item, at least, that seems like it could become a big interest is helping kids come off of tech, because tech can be quite addictive. So we have some resources for that. And then for the children, for their spiritual care, Bibles geared to their age range that are still the Holy Word of God, as well as books that will be inspiring and uplifting. And then just Christian literature, whether it's some Christian fiction, true stories, or how to improve in your prayer life or Christian living, we do offer those things.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you have materials for families. One of my passions is that families are kind of the building block, God's building block for society. And it's nice to know that there's a place that you can go locally and get materials like that. But what if I want a book and it's not on the shelf? Is there any way that you can help me if I know I want this book, but it's just not in your shelf?
Yeah, I do quite a bit of special ordering, even locating and tracking down some books that maybe were produced 50 years ago. That is sometimes often quite a bit more difficult. So if you have a book that you know is a little more obscure, just lend me some grace and some time. I won't forget it, but it might take a little bit of hunting in order to find that material to bring to you.
Tell us your secrets. How do you find things 50 years old?
There's some online retailers that actually resell used titles. They're often on a donation basis. That these suppliers will receive them and then they resell them for full value. And so I often apologize because I'm a little horrified at the sticker price, but that doesn't change the cost of the book. And I make sure that before I order that someone is both aware of the total cost of that item will be and that they feel comfortable with it.
So these may be books that are out of print. You can't go and buy them online any longer because maybe they're just so old that nobody's stocking them, and you find some of these things.
I can. I've been able to find maybe 50%, so I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but some titles you can get, some you can't, and I just try to make that clear that, and then I don't have a guarantee as to the condition of the book, because when we're talking about a book that's so many years old, we don't know if great-grandmother used to underline that in pen or pencil. They just give me like a very basic rating, and sometimes their rating doesn't live up to what it's said to be.
Now, let's get back to a few basics here. Where is the store? What are your current hours? Is there a phone number, an email address, a website? How do we get in touch with you if we want to find out more about what you have to offer?
Yeah, so the ABC Christian Bookstore, you can Google that, just ABC Christian Bookstore. We are at 505 South College Avenue, and in College Place, that's right across from the post office as you're going down College Avenue. So we are pretty easy to find. In terms of our phone number, I haven't memorized it yet, so
Okay.
I hesitate to
we'll
say
give
that.
you that one.
And then our email address is CP for College Place, and then ABC, and forgive me, it's a little long, but at UCC for Upper Columbia Conference,
Okay.
SDA for SeventhDayAdventist.org. So I can get that material, so maybe it could come on the screen at the bottom of the presentation. But yeah, we are easy to find. Our hours are currently under observation, and we are open 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Those are the hours of the store that I inherited, and I've been working on restructuring the sections, making sure that the flow makes sense, at least for my brain, and also doing some inventory systems and doing some updating in the store for signage. So once those things are complete, I hope to expand store hours Monday through Friday. I'm also working on hiring so I can have a more fully operable store open more days of the week.
So right now the store is in transition. New management, perhaps a look at the inventory and making adjustments and that kind of thing. So your current hours don't reflect what the future of the store is going to be, but that's the way it has to be for right now.
Exactly. And so I just ask for patience from the community, because as they feel that frustration with our limited hours, I can tell you that I do too, because I would love to have the store open. Just there's some structural things that will build a solid foundation for the future of the store that I'd like to get in place, and I'm working on that as quickly as possible.
So tell me a little bit more about your vision. Apparently part of it involves expanding the hours. What are some of the other things that we might see in the near future in terms of the bookstore?
In terms of the future, I know one of the things that I had wanted to start was doing author signings. So we have started that. I want to continue that. So if there's an author in this audience that would like to connect with me, I invite them to. I know I've had some well-known authors and some local authors, and we've had success with both. So I welcome authors to contact me for author signings. And even the community, if they have an idea for an event, I know down the road I would like to see a children's story hour being implemented. So I would be looking for volunteers that would like to read a story and maybe help with a craft. Just people that can help, that would enjoy coming together and creating community and family events available for our community.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing the new College Place ABC Bookstore, and I hope that you will take an opportunity to get down to College Avenue and visit the new store. It's under new management, and a lot of things are going to be happening there that I think will be of positive value to you and your family. Also, I want to thank you for joining us and let you know that we are open to your ideas for the future of Valley Viewpoint. If you have a concept, an idea, perhaps you want to recommend a guest. Maybe you represent an organization in the Walla Walla Valley or in our viewing area that would be of some service or blessing to the community. Let us know. We'd like to have you. Contact us at 509-529-9149. Again, that's 509-529-9149. For Viewpoint, I'm Dan Solis.